But let us open the Diversity and Inclusion Committee meeting 302 on November 19th. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, and the governor's March 15th order imposing strict limitation on the number of people who may gather in one place, this meeting of the Westboro Diversity and Inclusion Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with the right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westboro's website at www.town.westboro.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner: watching live on www.youtube.com/WestboroTV or on Westboro TV Verizon Channel 28 or Charter Channel 192, or watch a recorded version on the website westborotv.org under the Government tab, Meetings on Demand. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort is being made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means, i.e. Westboro TV. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite our best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westboro's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. And I want to remind members of the public that you may contribute to the discussion of these meetings on agenda items or suggest a topic for future agenda items by sending an email to the address diversity@town.westboro.ma.us, or you can call me, the chairperson, Kara Presley, at 508-366-3090. All right, hi, we have a nice big attendance today. Yay. I think the only person who cannot join us today is Alma. And thank you to Shelby for volunteering to take minutes. All right, so the idea is that today's meeting will be shorter than the last few because we've had some intense meetings and we don't have too long of an agenda. So we're scheduled to end at 4 o'clock. I will carry it over a few minutes if necessary to make sure we get through our agenda items. But I think we won't take too long today. Hi, nice to see all of you. Rana, Mike, Sarah, Ryan, Kim, Shazia, Shelby, Ema, Dan, and thanks to Westboro TV for recording. All right, first order of business is to approve October minutes. Thanks, Rana, for recording these and submitting them. Made a few very minor adjustments according to our conversation, but I sent them all to you. And hope you had a chance to look at them. If so,
thank you.
Great. And do I have a motion to approve the October minutes?
So moved.
All right, Kim, any discussion about the minutes? All right.
I'll second.
Okay, so Shelby seconds. So I'm going to do a roll call vote. I'll call your name and say yes in support of approval or no. First person, Rana.
Yes, I approve.
Mike.
Daniels, yes.
Sarah.
Connors, yes.
Ryan. Kim.
Foster, yes.
Shazia.
Tariq, yes.
Shelby.
Marshall, yes.
Ema.
Ema, yes.
Dan.
Barber, yes.
And Presley, yes. Great. Done. All right. So most of tonight's this afternoon's conversation, see, it's getting dark already, so I already feel like it's nighttime, but no, we're still in the daytime. Most of our conversation is going to be kind of a continuation of what we've talked about before, but I'm also hoping to spend a little bit of time on some parking lot issues that we've sort of set aside in the past. So I'm hoping we have plenty of discussion for any items that come up also as we go. But I did want to revisit our conversation about examples of work that is being done in other communities. Not that we need to, again, just to review, not that we're looking to copy other towns and what they're doing, because I think that we are actually sort of leading the way for towns our size, but just so we can continue to learn and be inspired by and kind of be validated by the work that is being done in other towns. And actually hoping too that we might get some ideas that will sort of fit in with what we're doing. So I checked in with Rana and Sarah, and it sounds like there's not too much new that you have uncovered, but Rana, I know you wanted to maybe talk about Hudson or something else. Go ahead.
There was in the Community Advocate, there was and I have it here, there was an article about Hudson residents push plans for Diversity and Inclusion Committee. So it's interesting how, and I had spoken to the people in Shrewsbury, and that people are really very into this, and they're all grappling with exactly what it means. So
Exactly.
I just found it very interesting that, you know, Hudson was doing this and all the others too. So that was it.
Yeah, I talked with someone who's a resident of Hudson who also works for the town, who was saying the same thing, that there are some individual residents who are pushing for this kind of committee. So I don't know if they're pushing to have a town sponsored committee like us, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they're doing. And I won't be surprised actually if some of these towns look to us for ideas and examples too. And then I shared with you a couple of links about what is happening in the city of Medford. Now, acknowledging that Medford is a city, it's not a town, it's much larger than we are. And my impression is that some of the initiatives that they wrote about in the websites we saw were started long before we've started having these discussions. So started long before last summer, but I still thought it was really great. Thanks, Shelby, for sharing that with me. I think there's so much food for, I mean, there's so many things to think about and so many ideas from that work, but I would just love to hear what your thoughts are when you looked at the websites about the proposal or the plan that Medford has put forward for kind of a commitment that their municipal government has made to work towards improved equity, diversity, and inclusion. Sarah?
I really was struck by the transportation part of their initiative. I know that Westboro recently, and you can jump in on this, but I believe that they started running a small transportation van around town at certain times of the day. So that is huge for the families that I work with. And I did notice that there's only really one stop that is near the apartments that one of the apartment complexes that I work with. So I'm wondering if maybe that is something that is going to increase over time. But I figured I would ask the question because I thought that was really cool.
So Sarah, I'll jump in here just for the group's benefit, but I did think your question, I appreciate you asking the question and tying that into Medford's work. So the interesting part about the VIA WRTA initiative, it's a private public partnership so WRTA used to drive their blue vans around town on a standard route. And if you were near the route, or you could walk to the route or navigate somehow to the route, you'd sort of flag the person down and you'd hop on the bus and get to go where you're going. And it was very reasonably priced, but that was a fixed route. The beauty of VIA WRTA is that, think of it like basically like share ride Uber. So you have the app, or you can call, so you don't have to, be technologically savvy. You do have to use a credit card to pay, or some sort of, there's no cash payment option. Excuse me, but it's basically where you want to go. So I live on Charles Street. I could call up the app and say, I want to go from here to Northborough Crossing, and they've already tweaked. They use what's called smart, it's it's not smart ridership, but it's basically smart technology that allows them to see where the people that they're serving and where do they want to go so they can constantly adjust their routes. It really started around trying to get people to and from the Southborough and Westborough MBTA stations and sort of those as anchor spots, and then filling in sort of regional or area needs. But they have already expanded. They're going out toward Route 20 now to like the UPS distribution center, because there's a lot of seasonal work that's happening there. Like I said, they go to, sorry, let me just let my dog in, sorry. They have very reasonable, it's $1 each, $1 to the, well, it's free right now through the end of the year. So any ride is free. Anyone basically over the age of 16 can get a ride. There's not an age limitation, but it's definitely something that I think, even just by the nature of your question, I appreciate you asking, it tells me how much more work has to be done to get the word out about this, whether it's getting people to work or getting people to go out and spend money in their local economy, but we still have a long way to go for work. And I know Kim participates in the Economic Development Committee as well. So by way of Zoom, I'm looking at her and making sure that this message gets carried there too, because there's symbiosis.
It has. They actually came and did a presentation.
No, I know they did. But I think it's,
yep.
It's, you know, I think people still think it's a fixed route, you know, situation, but you're absolutely there. It's intended to help for, well, you know, basically anyone that needs transportation. Any age, it's going to get colder. So I hope people are going to use it because walking is not going to be as friendly. So
I'm wondering, even since I have such a gateway of like a lot of families, I'm wondering even if there's like a flyer I could send out about that, that would be super helpful.
I have a whole stack. Can I bring them to you at Hastings?
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Great.
Do you have that digitally?
Yes.
Could you email me that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, that actually might be something that we can put on the diversity webpage of our committee webpage on the town website.
Yeah, we can do a blurb and yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll put it on Youth and Family Services. We've been having the same question about how do we share this with families in the most reasonable way, because it is an exciting new opportunity. Mike?
I'm just one more thing on this.
Oh, sure.
I'm doing my weekly Frank and Mary show, which by the way, so I don't know if folks know, I do a weekly TV show through Westboro TV called Frank and Mary, and we talk about a host of things that would be of interest to our fictional characters who are Frank and Mary. Carrie's been a guest on the show previously. But if there are topics that the Diversity and Inclusion Committee wants to bring forward or to talk about the work of the committee or anything, more than happy to have you on as a guest. But we're actually going to do a ride along, like a live ride along with VS. So once that's available, that's actually going to be like our December 9th show. You know, that will be sort of myself, like in some random camera, doing that, like, what's it really like? So hopefully, again, I think people just have to get comfortable with the service.
That is pretty great. Mike?
I was just looking on the City of Medford's webpage. They actually have a Facebook page. Did we ever consider doing that?
That's on our parking lot list of things to do. Yeah. So I think that, yeah, I think we should talk more in depth about that in a few minutes, about what that would look like and what that would entail.
Well, I was thinking that, you know, some of these services that Shelby talks about, we should probably put it on a Facebook page or some sort of social media to get it out quickly.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. All right. Any other comments about things that are happening in other towns? So I think if you all, yeah, Shelby.
Can I just add, so I did have a chance, I know that Rana was reaching out to, Shrewsbury and had that conversation with their chair, but that subsequently led to her calling me just to have a conversation. And she did provide me the name of the facilitator that they use, because as you know, oh, Rana, have you already read out
Yeah.
on this?
Oh, sorry, Rana did communicate that to me. Interestingly, Kim, the facilitator that Shrewsbury used for its diversity and inclusion committee is John Wortman, which is a facilitator that's done a lot of municipal government facilitation. Recently, he did some stuff for our department heads earlier in the pandemic. So, I mean, I think that that is an interesting conversation. As I indicated last month, Kim and Christy and I have been in conversation about sort of what are the next steps on a town-wide level to take to pursue training around diversity, inclusion, equity. But we're also having that conversation kind of in a bigger picture way, like what other things beyond training do we want to include? And I think that the example of what Medford is doing gives us some really good food for thought to bring to the table for us to consider what kind of scope are we looking at of effort that we want to make. We have as a guide the Board of Selectmen's statement that you all came up with, Shelby, in partnership with the town managers, about sort of what you're committing to address issues of systemic racism and such. And so I think that that gives us some guidance too. But I think that this meeting and the ideas that we come up with here can also really help influence what might be the scope of work that we want to do. You know, certainly if there are any complaints or concerns that members of the public are bringing to our attention or staff are bringing to our attention, that would help guide us as far as where we know there's work to be done, but we're not looking to just, you know, respond to complaints. We want to proactively address issues of systemic racism in the town and think about what areas do we need to look at. Ryan. Oh, Ryan, we can't hear you for some reason. You're not muted, but your sound is off.
That is very weird. Sorry.
Oh, you're very, very quiet. So Aiden once taught me, if you go to the bottom left of your screen and look at your mute button and hit the caret next to the mute button, it might say select a speaker, and you can switch whichever one is selected.
Okay.
See if that works.
Did that work?
Yes, it worked.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. Wow. Thank you, Aiden. Technological genius. So I was saying on a similar tangent to what you were saying about outlining our scope for the Diversity Inclusion Committee, Medford is pretty specific about that in that they outline certain areas that they want to focus on. It was business and community development, city government, health and well-being, housing, policing, and transportation. Are we thinking of, I guess, going on a similar route and choosing certain areas to focus on, or are we going to take diversity and inclusion issues as they arise, no matter what areas they come from?
So we will have a much more narrow scope than that, just dictated by our statement of purpose. So the fact that our statement of purpose is about town services, access to town services, and employment and volunteer opportunities. So that's really what the scope of this group is. And so this group may make recommendations, if we decide to the Board of Selectmen and or to the town manager's office around those areas. We've deemed that the work of the police is outside of the jurisdiction of this committee, and that the work of the schools is outside the jurisdiction of this committee. However, Amber Bach, the superintendent, has made clear that she wants as much as possible for the schools to be aligned with the town. So she wants, that's why Sarah is representing, that they want to make sure that they're really in the loop of what we're recommending and what we're talking about. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that makes sense, especially for a town of Westboro's size. Thank you.
I don't know if everyone is aware of the recent study that the schools undertook, the diversity study. Sarah, I know you're probably familiar with it, but lots of other folks may not be. I was not able to listen to the school board meeting last night where I think they were going to share the results. But I think it's important for this committee to be aware that that's what the study is, and I guess ultimately kind of where it might be going. I don't want to repeat anything. Is everyone familiar with what's going on there?
No, I would love to, I mean, I know a little bit about it myself, but Sarah, if you feel comfortable giving us a summary, we're naturally segueing into our next agenda item. So kind of community issues. And I think this is a great place to talk about.
Perfect. So I didn't watch the school committee meeting either, but I'm on the diversity council here at school as well. And we had a meeting this morning, and my principal, Julia DeGata, she's awesome. She was saying that she wants to take that data and really dive into it within the next month. So by our next meeting, I will know specifics of how everyone's feeling. But basically, there was a survey sent out by our superintendent and assistant superintendent where it went to the families of the whole district, it went to the staff of the whole district, and it went to students from Mill Pond, which is 4th to 6th grade, Gibbons 7th and 8th grade, and the high school as well. Basically asking how they were feeling about the diversity in our town, what they're seeing, and how we could do better. I myself took it. It was a great survey. It asked us the types of people that we see, if we see representation, if we've ever been discriminated against, what we've seen. So I think we could probably kind of guess. There's about to announce it.
It is that time of day, school announcement time.
It's also Wellness Day, so they keep making like really fun announcements about like things going on. Sorry about that. So basically, my principal was saying she can probably guess what the staff will say, but that we are very curious what the middle through high school students will say about what they are seeing at their schools, as well as we are trying to have our families that speak a second language, we're trying to have people call them and help them fill out the survey so that their voices are also heard. And actually, my department head, May Pitzenzer, was the one making a lot of those phone calls. So hopefully she got people to answer those. But I should know in the next couple of weeks more about that data. But if the school committee was discussing it last night, maybe we could possibly get a link and watch that as well.
So it's probably not yet available through Westboro TV, but I can find that. I just wrote that down to send that link to everyone to watch and give you the specific minutes so you don't have to watch the whole thing if you don't want. But what I loved about the survey was that there were questions about, have you ever observed this about someone else? So it wasn't just reflective about your own personal experiences, but have you ever sort of witnessed? And I thought I was pleased to see that the survey, went in that direction.
So I wonder, oh, Ema, yes.
I just have a quick question. I don't know if I missed what you said, Sarah. Who developed the survey?
I'm not entirely sure. All I know is that I got an email from Daniel Mayer, our assistant superintendent.
So I think the survey was developed in coordination with a group called We Care. And if I try to speak to the acronym, Ala Baranovsky and Shaquan Reed are two of the kind of leading folks, and there are some other folks that I'm leaving out that, so it's Westboro education, something about anti-racism education, something. It's We Care if you find it on Facebook. And they reached out to they collaborated with the school department. And I'm pretty sure that survey was written as both sort of from an administration perspective as well as from the parent community.
And I mean, it makes me think about getting that feedback and learning more about that and bringing it here. Might there be a way for us to do a similar survey to the town at large? You know, for the populations that's not captured through the schools.
If I had a complaint about the survey, and I think I put this in my comments, so I'm not sharing this outside of what I already said in the survey. It was very specific about racism, but I think that was the lens through which We Care had approached, and so I understand the focus of it. But as we all know, discrimination and bias cuts across lots more than just racism. So that was my only thing as I was sort of answering it. You know, some other questions been asked. I might have had some different perspectives, but so if we were to do this as a community, we'd have to think about what's the lens. Do we want to sort of take that and mirror it and, you know, just focus on it, which is fine, or do we want to kind of, you know, address other aspects where there could be bias?
Right. Thank you, Rana.
So and nobody seems to know exactly who generated this survey and whether it was actually an academic research, you know, who the people, how they came up with it and what the metrics were, et cetera, which to me would be very interesting because, you know, how something is approached and how something is delivered and how something then is, how you assess the results are all, to me, it should be very academic. It should not be, you know, oh, what fun or what something like that. It should be a serious endeavor. And if we were to do something like that, I think that we would have to engage a group of serious academicians and members of the community, et cetera, but that it would be done on that level as opposed to any other way. That's just my comment.
Thank you. Ima?
I was going to say, I actually recently read an article from September 2018. It was geared towards, it was actually written by minority resident physicians, and it's in the Journal of American Medicine. So I can forward that because they do have a sampling of interview questions, and they did research this further, and they do give recommendations from both a intrinsic and extrinsic standpoint in regards to racism. So it does cover microaggressions as well as explicit biases or explicit or overt racism. So I think I mean, we can maybe base something off of that, and I don't mind sharing that with the group. And I can send that via email if you'd like right now.
Thank you. That'd be helpful. Whether you do it now or later, that'd be a nice thing to take a look at. And I know, Shazia, you have your hand raised, so just 1 second. I just want to acknowledge, Shelby, what you said about, you know, taking a look at possibly a wider array of issues of diversity, inclusion, equity, and other identities and issues in addition to racism. So just holding that. Shazia.
Yes, I was going to echo that initially. And the other thing, I do agree, it needs to be broader, but to the point that was made earlier, we need to focus on what we are planning to achieve, the areas like the town services and the access to volunteer activities. You know, to Ryan's point, if we're going to make a survey, we can certainly make it broad, either just for informational purposes, but then if we are going to have an end result and a focus, we'll have to also keep that in mind when we're making our own survey. It has to be a little bit narrower.
Absolutely. And just so you know, in my little, on the side, I found out the answer to the question about who developed the survey or where it came from. It was modified from the Panorama Company survey. Oh, that's right. Somebody even sent me information about them. By Westboro School personnel, including the Assistant Superintendent, Director of SEL, Director of Wellness, and others.
I'm sending the link to the survey to everyone right now. Hopefully you won't have a problem at least opening it to review it, so you'll have that in your inbox.
Thank you. And Shelby, as you're recording minutes, let's just make a reference to these websites and things that people are sharing in the minutes as well, if you don't mind.
Ema, if you send that, I wasn't writing fast enough, but if you send that along, then I'll make sure it's included.
Thank you.
No problem. I just emailed it out to everyone, so everyone should have a copy of that shortly.
Great. Other community issues or announcements that people would like to address? So I will bring up that, oh, Shelby has something. Go ahead, Shelby.
Sorry, just a quick update. I know that, so the Black Lives Matter mural that we had discussed as a group, and then this committee recommended that the Board of Selectmen create a policy around art, public art displays. And so that work has started, and we're not surprisingly looking at policies in other communities where there are public art policies. Obviously, why recreate the wheel? And so that work is underway, just as it's in its infancy. Unfortunately, you know, COVID has become the bane of all of our existence, but I did want to make sure that everyone knew it was continuing.
Thank you. Just in light of the holiday season being upon us, the winter holiday season, I just want to share the work that the COVID Task Force is doing in Youth and Family Services in collaboration with other community partners. Because as we're talking about access and inclusion, we know that there are communities who struggle more in the winter and the holidays than others. And I just want to share with folks as a matter of kind of announcements that there are a couple of efforts happening to meet the needs of community members who are isolated during the Thanksgiving holiday. Unfortunately, the community dinner that's typically held at the Knights of Columbus for Thanksgiving is not being held this year because of COVID. And a group of folks from the COVID Task Force kind of broke off and met up with other community members to see if there's anything we could do to replace that. And while we determined that serving food was not going to be an option, we did come up with a couple of kind of fun and friendly community building ideas. So Westboro TV is partnering with this group to put together a montage of pictures and videos and messages that will run Thanksgiving Day and the days surrounding it. And the pictures will be from community groups and from organizations and town departments saying Happy Thanksgiving, and here are our Thanksgiving wishes for the year, and here's what we're grateful for this year. So that's a project. If you want to learn more about it, you can go to the Westboro Youth and Family Services Facebook page. You can go to Westboro Connects, and a few other folks I know have shared it out. The library. So feel free to look at that. And I might even take a screenshot of all of us smiling during this meeting, and I'll send one on our behalf. So actually, let's do it right now. Everybody smile.
I was just that maybe we have just do a, I mean, just in the interest of time, that I think works well. And then maybe it's a good opportunity to say, we'd love to hear from you kind of thing. You know, we're reaching out to you or some sort of message.
That's a great idea. So I'll couple it with on the Thanksgiving, we're thinking of everyone, and we want to, in our effort to address, I'll come up with something, but that's a good idea. Please share with us, and we'll invite people to contact us. So everybody smile. All right, done. Great screenshots. So that's happening. And then folks in town can call the COVID info phone line, which is 508-871-5111 to request a call on Thanksgiving. So there are a group of volunteers who will be making outreach calls to folks on Thanksgiving just to chat and say hello and give some people some company. We know that it's very unlikely that people are just going to do it on their own, but if each of us calls somebody that we know in Westboro who may be isolated and encourages them to sign up for this outreach call, then may be more likely to. But just to remind you folks, they can call the COVID info phone line during town operating hours between now and next Tuesday, and a volunteer will call them. And then the food pantry is distributing today Thanksgiving baskets. Westboro Youth and Family Services is distributing gift cards for Thanksgiving to a few families that we serve. The folks that used to be served by St. Luke's are being served by the food pantry. There's a lot of good efforts that are happening. And also the free holiday store is happening this year, although it's going to look different than in the past. That, if for those of you who may not know, Westboro Youth and Family Services partners with the Rotary Club of Westboro. The Rotary Club solicits donations of gifts and toys for children, and with the help of Youth and Family Services distributes those to families. And we can't do that this year because of COVID, but the Rotary Club is doing a gift card drive, and Youth and Family Services is going to help to distribute those gift cards to families who are in need. The applications for the holiday store, people do need to fill out an application. The only requirement is that you live in Westboro and that you have kids in the house up to age 18. And they just need to fill out an application and drop that off at the library. Applications in 4 different languages can be picked up at the library, can be gotten through the schools, through school principals and school nurses, and can be found on the Westboro Youth and Family Services website, and will also be made available through the food pantry in the next few days.
And the schools, through their National Honor Society group, have offered to provide some bundles of wrapping paper and that sort of thing, because typically that's part of the free holiday store process, where you can have things wrapped or at least walk home with that. So our superintendent said they would take that on, and the students can help with that. So
yes, so there's some really good things happening around the holiday season to support inclusion. Other announcements or community concerns?
So I'm going to ask Sergeant Daniels to give an update on something recently reported. He's like, uh-oh. He and Chief Laurie made a great presentation to the Board of Selectmen recently regarding a grant for body-worn cameras. So I thought this group would be particularly interested in that. Sergeant Daniels, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so over the past couple months, actually, since last February, the end of February, early March, we looked at a number of grants, 2 federal grants and 1 state grant. We were unsuccessful for the first 2, simply just because they were highly competitive. We were competing, I guess, across the entire country for grant funds. But we were able to, right now we got a verbal conditional offer for $40,000 for our body-worn camera program. So we're obviously still looking into it. It's a costly program. You know, a lot of that involves storage and whatnot. So we're trying to use this grant to help subsidize the entire commitment for it. So we've been successful. So we're still looking at it, and we're looking to develop a policy around accreditation. So far, so good.
Thank you for that update.
You're welcome.
And I can include in our minutes again just a link for ease, if for those that want to watch the Board of Selectmen meeting. It was a great presentation, and obviously Sergeant Daniels and Chief Laurie went into more detail. There were some questions about what would it cost. Actually, I thought it was a great dialogue, and in general, the Selectmen were. We didn't take a vote, but very supportive of the program, both as a, if I say this right, not only a way to protect people that the police would engage with, but also obviously to protect our public safety teams. So more to come on that, and hopefully we can find a way in the town to support that.
I also want to acknowledge the article that Ema shared with all of us. I unfortunately, Emma, haven't had a chance to read it. I've been out of the office the last few days and just got my emails today, but I look forward to looking at it. But I don't know just if there's any comment that you'd like to make or any particular point that you'd like to bring forward to the committee.
Sure. So it's the two articles. One of them is a perspective piece, but the other is just sort of, I sent it out to kind of give us a framework or a mental framework as to how or where we see this group going and progressing, and how we ourselves individually are navigating through this whole diversity and inclusion discussion, both within this group or this committee, as well as, you know, just in our personal or professional lives, and just seeing how that contributes to kind of innovation and growth in that sense. So that's pretty much what the article was speaking about. And it's a long one. I know one of the ones that I sent was really long. The perspective piece is a little shorter, but I also sent out a couple of more articles just now. One of them, it reminded me when we were talking about the school, Sarah, I had read the impact of racism on children and adolescents. So I thought that was really nice to share from like a healthcare perspective. And maybe that can help sort of from a holistic standpoint, because racism affects so many different aspects of just human well-being and health. I feel like it's very important. And I feel like these articles really touch upon sort of the mental health aspect, emotional health, physical health, all of that, especially during times of COVID, like right now.
Emma, I don't think I saw the article on the perspective sort of from the gentleman, I think it was written from a male perspective, who was sort of observing young folks, but the other one you said that was really long, I don't think I got that. I don't know if maybe I just missed it. I just did a quick search.
Yeah, I don't know that
the link, or did that link work?
I didn't see a link in that one. It was just, here's the New England Journal of Medicine.
Hold on one moment. Let me just.
So if you could just check on that. And then I know you just sent the emails while we were talking, but because I was like, oh, wait, I only read 2 pages. Obviously, yeah. Shorted my education.
Yeah, I'll check on that. And anybody else, let me know. It should be a DOI link. It starts with DOI, and it should be, I purposely.
Oh, you know what? I see it now. It actually is very faint. It almost looked like your signature line, like above it. Never mind, it's there.
Okay. Sorry about that. That's why sometimes I
my bad.
Copy and paste. No problem.
Thanks. So Mike has to step off right now. He sends his regrets.
So one thought I have, and again, I'm struggling a little bit with the scope of our group and kind of where we step off and where we engage, but there is so much information out there. Emma just provided, some articles today, and I'm wondering if we should consider partnering maybe with the library, or I don't know if this is sort of a square one opportunity, Kara, but about, community conversations about matters of racism, and having difficult, I don't know. I mean, there are 1,000 different things. If you just go out and Google podcasts and TED Talks, you could sort of just press play. To me, it's almost like, let's hear someone speak, and then let's create community conversations around these topics or something. I don't know. I'm not saying it's the scope of this group.
Yeah.
Maybe
again, just for community updates, Square One is a collaboration between Youth and Family Services in partnership with the Westboro Public Schools, the Westboro Rotary Club, and Westboro Connects. And we are right now in the process of looking at programming that addresses difficult conversations is the broad topic that we've been talking about doing for a year. This is sort of the agenda for the year before COVID hit, before the Black Lives Matter movement took off this summer. But that is something we're looking at through that group. That particular kind of community conversations, I'm not sure would have a place with this committee unless they're linked specifically to effort that we're making around town services, town personnel issues, volunteer issues. Not that those are separate things. I certainly could imagine the connection, but I think that one needs to specifically and intentionally inform the other. So, for example, this is just an example. This is not a suggestion of something we could do, but thinking about access to services. And we've talked, this is a parking lot issue, so sort of like rolling into one of the other agenda items, is looking at our language access. We have people in Westboro speak so many languages, and wondering, you know, are linguistic barriers getting in the way of people participating or utilizing town services? And might we have some kind of survey or community conversation that looks at that issue? That's just one example. Are issues of bias or fear or racism getting in the way of people coming to one of the town buildings? I'm not saying that is happening, but these are just the kind of things that we want to make sure that the work that we're doing, the conversations that we're having are going to steer us back to looking at town services, town's policy, town procedure, employment, volunteer issues. You know, I think that the Medford example is good. I mean, Ryan named all these areas that we wouldn't touch that Medford is touching, but they also gave some really concrete things about looking at personnel policies or you know, talking about hiring and training town staff. And so I think that's where our scope needs to be. And I think that even though it kind of feels nebulous in some of these meetings, believe it or not, I feel like we're making a little progress in figuring that out a little bit.
And I don't want to be critical of it. I just, I feel like it would be nice to sort of sink our teeth into.
Well, it would. And I actually, I mean, this is one of the reasons that I am having the conversations with folks in the town manager's office, because there may be town leadership, and that could include the Board of Selectmen, that is getting feedback from constituents or is having issues around, you know, that staff are bringing forward that may benefit from our committee looking at it closely, right? Doing a little exploration around the issue as we have with some other issues. So I don't want to, you know, I don't want to wait for people to have complaints, but you know, I think members of this committee, you can even as individuals or as representatives of your neighborhood or your family or your religious congregation come to this table and say, listen, this is something that people are asking questions about. This is something people really want answers about. This is something people want to take action on. And it may not be in response to something negative. It may be a proactive thing. There's so many ways that we can go, but you know, and I have lots of ideas of things I think we could do, but I don't want it just to be a subjective efforts that we make. Ema?
I would suggest, like, this is just a recommendation because I don't know where to start either. And I think because racism and discrimination is both a systematic and institutionalized issue, there's so many complex layers to it. And so I know we all want to hit the ground running. However, I think we need to understand that even historically, this is something that is embedded into so much of our society that it affects, you know, access to care, healthcare, you know, so many things. Even, you know, if somebody doesn't have, or if somebody doesn't have a grocery store in their town, so, and they don't have a vehicle, how are they supposed to go grocery shopping? Is there access in the town provided, similar to what we were discussing earlier, that stops or has a route from the grocery store certain times a day for all people in the community, not just our elderly population, things like that. So I think we need to understand that there are so many issues, and it's hard to necessarily pick just one right off the bat. And I would recommend the first, I guess, to approach this is sort of in a space of kind of just more reflection. And I feel like as a group, maybe amongst ourselves first, we should each we already started talking about how the purpose each of us feels this group should have, or where we see the goal of this group. But I think we also need to kind of get to know each other first. And that could also spread hopefully into our community, or spill into our community for people we don't know, our neighbors down the street, or our neighbors next door, whatever, or, you know, our grocery store workers, or whoever, just our community. So I feel like that's sort of that's just my recommendation as to where we should start, kind of small within our group. And I know we are a community group, but I feel like this is something that is a priority issue. I mean, it's an emergency issue, a national emergency. That's what it is. That's what racism and discrimination right now is constituted as. And I feel, you know, in an emergency, it's so quick to act impulsively. And I think right now we should kind of reflect on ourselves and what we want for the group, what we think for the group, what our personal feelings are, and maybe our personal experiences. And that way it may be inviting and create sort of a space for a safe space for our community, and a trusting space for all of us. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think that it does. And you know, it was just in August, not very many months ago, that many of you came on board, or July, right? Like almost only Rana and Shelby and Kim and I aren't new, right? Brand new. And I haven't been around that long, really. So,
and Mike and Alma.
Oh yeah, and Mike and Alma, right? Thank you. I was looking at the screen today. Thank you. But we voted to have this particular group because we recognize that based on your experience, your background, what your passions and interests that you brought into the interviews, that is your ideas, maybe those that drive the work of this group. So, you know, we aren't elected, you know, like Shelby is as a board member, where, you know, we need to very explicitly represent our constituents. Instead, that's sort of the advantage of being this group, not that we're going to be loosey-goosey about it, but that we kind of just recognize that we each bring our own personal and professional areas of expertise that are of value. So just like Ryan brought up to our attention, you know, helping us maintain our focus on the fact that with the persistence of the COVID-19 pandemic has also come a huge rise in anti-Asian hate violence. And so we want to pay attention to that, right? Like that's something specific that affects our community, who is a large percentage of Asian population. And, you know, so maybe there's something out of that we pay attention to. But thank you, Ema. I think that's a really good point. And I also want to, out of respect for time, I just want to kind of move into what I put on the agenda about promoting promoting awareness about this group and encouraging engagement. I tried really hard to get a hold of that reporter who was going to write about us last year, and I cannot find her anywhere. So I was thinking that one of us, and I'm happy to do it, should maybe contact Bonnie at the Community Advocate, or if you all have other ideas, I think this is a great time to just let the community know who we are. Let the community know that we'd love to hear from the community. And we'll start ideas and thoughts and feelings and needs will start trickling in that way too.
Maybe we want to time that with, and I know I think Sergeant Daniel's recommendation of a social media page is a good one. With that comes time and commitment and who's going to do it and who has access to it and all those other things. So it would be maybe nice if we had a page to launch and use that as a springboard to why the community advocate or someone would want to talk to us. So.
Well, I do recall that Sarah Connors at one point, some time ago, volunteered to be our Facebook in charge person.
Yes, I can still do that. I still volunteer.
Okay, right. I think that would be great. I think get some, and that sort of tees us up, not to rush things, Ema. I really appreciate your perspective. I feel like I just had like sort of a Zen moment of grounding. But if we wanted to launch a community survey or we wanted to offer forums, then we have an easier platform to do it. Because we can talk about the website a lot, but website sort of is, as we know, is not as engaging as
yeah. So let's put that as a top agenda item for next month about developing social media, specifically Facebook, but maybe we'll have a broader conversation than that to next month. So come with your ideas about what that would entail, what you'd want to see on it. Ryan? Oh, Ryan, you're quiet again.
No, not yet.
It's percolating.
I'm not sure, Ryan. I can't hear you at all.
Go on, talk.
Oh, is it okay? Okay, I don't know why I'm borrowing my mom's laptop, but I was saying that, Sarah, if you need help with social media at all, Facebook, Instagram, since I'm a little bit younger than all of you, I am pretty well acquainted with all of those. So I don't know you at all if you need an extra hand.
Rana.
And I just want to say, as someone who's slightly older than Ryan, I don't do Facebook. I don't think that it's necessarily relevant, but I think that there are other people who don't do Facebook and have no intention of ever doing Facebook. So that considering Facebook, like, I mean, I guess it is the gateway for most people, but there are those of us for whom it is a closed door and will never be opened. So
that makes you smart.
I do appreciate, so let's make that a top agenda item is awareness raising and promotion, starting with social media, but not limited to social media. So we'll make that. So bring to us next month your ideas about not only social media, but about other platforms through which we can promote both written platforms or whatever, maybe little shows like Frank and Mary or other things like that. So that's our homework for next time for sure.
Kara, can I add one thing for a parking lot issue? I don't know if this was, I don't recall if this was discussed, but when Ema was talking and we were talking about how the systemic nature and how embedded racism is, it occurred to me some of the national conversations going on about the launch of the vaccine and vaccination. And then I was just thinking that at some point, this committee should probably have an update through our Board of Health to understand how vaccinations will be made available to people in this community. Particularly, I mean, okay, so I'm an individual that has health insurance, and at some point, I guess my doctor will say, you need to go get this and I'll have access to it, but I'm not everyone, right? So it's sort of like there's going to be a group that's just going to have access to it, and then there will be people that don't, and I'm interested in the don't or the not easy to get to. And so I think this group should understand what's going on regionally and specifically in Westboro as we get closer. I realize we're probably not there just yet, but that's certainly an update that I think this group would be interested in, or at least I am.
I'll go ahead and reach out to Steve Bakari and put this on his radar and let him and the Board of Health tell us sort of what timeline they think that would be a helpful thing to talk about. And I'll make sure that they know that they're invited, and I'll persist in making sure that they can.
I know the Board of Selectmen will be asking this. So I don't think it's going to be an uncommon question, but I just, it's important when we talk about access to care.
Right. Thank you. That's really helpful. Well, we did it. It's 2 minutes past 4. Yes. Yes.
Sorry.
Kim.
Just one thing, if there's going to be a discussion at the next meeting about social media, I think in advance of that, we should distribute the town's social media policy to the committee members. We will have to abide by that, and we need to make sure.
Thank you for that reminder.
However we set this up, that it conforms to the policy.
Thank you. That's really helpful. All right. Sarah, I'll make sure that, well, I'll send it to the whole committee. But if you and Ryan, if you can take an especially close look at that.
Shall I move to adjourn?
You move to adjourn. Rana moves to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Kim seconds. I'm going to call your votes. Shazia?
Tariq, yes.
Rana?
Yes, please.
Sarah?
Connors, yes.
Dan?
Barber, yes.
Shelby?
Yes.
Kim?
Foster, yes.
Ryan?
Nguyen, yes.
Ema?
Yes, yes.
And Presley, yes. All right, meeting is adjourned.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. It's nice to see you.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care.